Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Etheria restart video. So in today's video, guys, we're going to be going over the hero rebalancing that took place prior to global launch here. The devs released the patch notes on June 1st for global launch. They talk about a couple different things in here, new game modes, things that have been changed in game, bug fixes, UI rebalancing, things like that. So I'll link this below. I'm not going to go over the whole thing. I do just want to go over the hero rebalancing, but I highly suggest you check this out because there's a lot of really great, exciting things to kind of get excited about. But yeah, I wanted to talk about this rebalancing. Now, first things first, it is a rebalancing. It is not buffs and nerfs. The game has never been released yet. There's been betas, but the beta is to test to see if something is correct or incorrect. I've seen so many people get their panties in a wad saying that, oh, this hero got nerfed and now my free-to-play experience is ruined. It's just like the hero didn't get nerfed. They have a initial design of a hero. They want to test to see if it's okay. And if it isn't, it's 100% within their right to rebalance a character based on what they wanted it to do originally. It's like a car manufacturer designing a car, having people test drive it. Some people might like one thing, some people might not like something else. And then the car designer rebalances that car to make sure that it is what they wanted it to be whenever they release it for sale. Same thing here. Not a buff or a nerf. It's literally just a rebalancing based on what they expect the character to do when they were originally designing it. So quit thinking that the devs destroyed your whole gaming experience. The game's never been released yet, so I don't know what those people are complaining about. Anyway, I'm off my soapbox. Let's talk about these adjustments, okay? So the first thing that they did change is whenever you take your character from 4 to 5 star and 5 to 6 star, they'll get 5 points of speed on their base speed attribute. In the betas, this was not the case. Whenever you pulled a character, their base speed was static, and the only thing that kind of got increased whenever you bumped them up from like 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, was their attack, HP, defense, things like that. But now, speed will be affected. This is a reasonable change, and it's meaningful. It is going to matter a lot more now that your characters are 5 and 6 stars. The 10 speed basis points will matter. This is mainly a PvP thing. However, it does help for PvE-related content if you're able to achieve it on your characters. Now, I don't know if this is 10 additional speed to all characters, or if the speeds that we've seen in betas will just be taken down by 10, and then the characters can eventually get up to the base speeds that we saw in beta by leveling them up to 6 stars. So I don't know yet. Okay, so let's get into these changes, and the thing to notice is the final changes, like the effect changes, are based on the characters having their skills fully leveled up, okay? So the first change is to Chloros with his S3. So his multiplier is going from 400% to 480%. So he was already one of the highest, if not, actually I think he was the highest single target damage dealer in the game, in the betas. So he'll keep this track whenever it comes to global launch with this change to his skill 3. You do have to ramp up to it, but Chloros has always been a really good single target damage dealer. The consensus on him is that he will eventually be really great for the end game and future content, but as of now, he isn't really needed for progression, but still, this is a nice change. Veronica is the next one, also on her skill 3 change. She now has 100% chance to spread the buffs that she steals on her skill 3 to all of her allies. And then she still applies that soul ward. This is really needed, in my opinion, considering Veronica in prior betas, she had her skill similar to this. But then they wanted to test something out in this final beta test. It did not work out. Veronica was basically irrelevant, and they didn't want that for her. So now they've kind of rebalanced her to have this be a 100% chance to spread all of those buffs. This makes Veronica very viable again whenever it comes to global launch. So I think this was a smart thing to do. You didn't want to have like an SSR completely irrelevant. So Mia also gets a pretty big change in 2 areas. She gets a reduced cooldown on her skill 2 from 5 to 4 turns, which is nice. Mia actually, I think, is quite underrated. So this does help her probably be a little bit more in the limelight, at least the skill cooldown. Skill cooldowns are pretty big in here. Cycling through to your skill 2 and skill 3, a lot of these skill 2s and skill 3s in the game are quite powerful, but most of them are on a higher skill cooldown, so the reduction is really nice here. And then she gets a boost to her HP healing percentage. This is just, cherry on top for Mia. Mia was already good. I think the rebalancing probably makes her more viable as a fire healer, where a lot of times in the beta, people were just opting to go with Ling Luo because she was a premier healer. So this might switch some things up, might make Mia a little more relevant, in content instead of just defaulting to Ling Luo. So Shiata gets a small change. Her S3, her damage goes from 80 to 90%, and I believe, based on her soul flames, this ticks up to 3 separate instances of 90 damage. Shiata, like Chloros, is the highest scaling damage dealer when it comes to AoE damage with this skill 3 once she gets fully leveled up on her soul flame evolutions, which can be evolved 3 times. Once that's at max, she becomes the highest scaling AoE damage dealer. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. So there's that change. Now, Tiamat is getting, I think, a rather significant change, but she was, by and far, I think, one of the most overtuned heroes in the game, where it was essentially a no-brainer to pick her out of the targeted summon. If all things considered, where you didn't have enough summons, like if you had to pick a starting character to go with, I think she was the safest. But what happens is, on her skill 1, whenever she transforms into her dragon form, instead of recovering 30% of her HP, it's 10%. And then also her bloodbath stacks. Her healing is decreased from 4% to 3%. This one I don't think is a huge deal. However, the recovery of 30 to 10% I think is significant. However, Tiamat is still going to be very, very good. So this was needed for sure. But yeah, still significant, I think. Now, Rahu, this one is interesting considering I thought he was already vastly underrated. People just weren't utilizing him enough. And I don't know if there was enough data to warrant this, considering the amount of people that were like playing Rahu. But yeah, so they buffed up his damage on his skill 1, which is, most of the bread and butter of Rahu, considering he does the follow-up attacks with his allies once he has those wrathful form stacks. So increasing his damage, which, again, he was already a great damage dealer, is just a really nice rebalance for him. And then his stacks, not only has his damage been amplified, but he also gets additional damage amplification on his passives, with the stacks going from 4% to 5%. So that's very, very good. And then his wrathful form will do an increased damage multiplier from 30 to 40. So Rahu had a really big rebalance. This one seems interesting to me, considering, again, I thought he was already quite strong. So I'd watch out for Rahu. He's a sleeper. Ling Luo also got a rebalance that is interesting to me, which is the purifying of a debuff on a target increased from 65 to 75%. This skill was already absolutely amazing because it's like a static passive. And bumping that up to 75%, like Ling Luo was already extremely strong, and she's going to be strong going into global launch. It's just, cherry on top again for Ling Luo, similar to a couple of these heroes. Now, Rosa, they did rebalance her from pushing back the turn meter by 10% to 8%. This is probably good. I think a lot of people were really high on Rosa. I mean, in my opinion, this isn't super significant. In the big scheme of things, the 3 instances of this, it goes from 30% down to 24%. It's just like, okay, yeah, it was probably causing a bunch of loops in certain runs, and that's not fun. So Borier, I never know how to pronounce this guy's name. He also gets a rebalance of whenever he comes into play. The HP cap goes from 500% to 560, so more additional, HP for him. And then his multiplier on his skill 3 also increased from 440 to 480. This was already a strong character. He's really good in PvP. He did fall off towards the late game on the PvE side. I don't think this is going to make much of a difference. I think he just gets stronger in PvP, in all honesty. And he's one of the heroes, one of like 4 or 5 heroes that has an AoE Dispel. So he's another one to kind of watch out for. All right, so Lilith, her S2, she increased her multiplier of dealing damage from 20 to 24%. I already thought Lilith was strong. This makes her a little bit stronger. In comparison from her to Tiamat, like Tiamat is based on like 30% of her HP, and Tiamat has higher base HP. So bumping this up, I think, does put her more in line with Tiamat in regards to, a green version of Tiamat versus the blue version. But Lilith, again, already really cool. The fact that they're increasing this damage multiplier is nice. Now, Claus got one of the bigger changes. I made multiple videos talking about her hacking progress and her hack-in, unique debuff being extremely strong. And they have rebalanced it to take away the speed multiplier. However, they did add a speed down debuff on her skill 3. So this skill 3 is amazing. Defense down, speed down, along with the 2 stacks of hacking progress is great. Damage amplification, damage reduction, defense down, speed down on one skill is just like, whoa, right? So, again, this is just a rebalance. It's not a nerf or a buff. It's just rebalancing how her kit is going to work. That skill 3 is going to be extremely crucial to really loop back around to, take off of, skill cooldown. But Claus is just such a strong character. I was really impressed with her in the final beta test. She's one of the heroes I hope to pull. So this one, Freya, I don't know why they're calling this out, because this is what the original skill said. So I don't know if this is a mistake. I don't know if they're changing that to 60%, because right now it is 70. So I don't know what that is. All right, so then they made some changes to some of the SRs. So Turandot also had her turn meter pushback reduced from 30% to 25%. I think what the devs saw in the final beta, and tons of people were talking about this, was turn meter amplification, like increase or decrease, was game changing. It was, in my opinion, overpowered. So I think the devs saw that in the data as well, and they were just like, oh yeah, this needs to be kind of pushed back a little bit because it's causing some issues with, how difficult content is and how far people are progressing based on having specific characters with the turn meter pushback. But Turandot, some people have talked about how she's not very good. I think one of the things that, one of the areas that she fits in is endgame Terramaton runs, because she does have a Dispel on her skill 2 along with the turn meter pushback. It's a solid skill. And the Terramaton has immunity in the Inferno stages, so that's where Turandot was used. But still, I think she's still going to be used there. It is just some minor tweaking to the turn meter pushback, so you're not breaking the game. All right, so next we have Fire Chiaki. Chiaki, this is another hero that people are like, oh, this character's terrible, and I use this character so much in the final beta test. She has that great skill in Origami Guardian that reduces damage just on a flat rate, and it's a unique buff. So they've rebalanced her to have her percentages of heals be increased. So the skill 1 goes up from 12 to 15. The skill 2 goes up from 40 to 50% of the hero's max HP. That's a really nice change. And then 24 to 30%. So she's a solid healer. All right, next is Dinah. So Dinah was essentially in every comp when it came to boss fights, because her erosion effect, along with vulnerable, was just crazy amounts of amplification. But you see the same thing here on her skill 1, where the turn meter steal, turn meter pushback, turn meter amplification, they've all kind of been reduced or changed. And in Dinah's case, it did go from 25 to 15. Stealing turn meter was just another level up from, turn meter reduction, pushback, or turn meter push up. Because not only are you reducing, but you're also, it's a full swing. You're reducing theirs by 25, and you're increasing yours by 25. It's a 50-point swing. That's pretty nuts, especially on a skill 1. I hope people see that. And then on her skill 2 passive, she had this erosion passive where if somebody received a crit, it increased the turn meter's percentage by 10%. They've dropped that down to 6%. Again, same kind of line here. I think the devs just saw so much data showing that turn meter manipulation was a big thing. So Kraken as well. So Kraken, his percentage chance to push back turn meter goes from 75 to 65. This doesn't matter. It really doesn't, because what we saw in the hyperlink talk was you can actually double the percentage of something activating. So this isn't a big deal as long as you have the effect accuracy. And then the turn meter, this is the thing that does matter on Kraken. It goes from 35 to 30%. And then the freeze chance, same thing with the activation rate that we saw in the hyperlink talk. It doesn't matter. So the key thing here is his turn meter pushback got reduced from 35 to 30, staying in line with the rest of the changes. So this is fine. So Sonia here had her healing percentages reduced from 16 to 14, and then the healing effect being applied to the amount of HP she lost, going from 0.8 to 0.6. This is negligible, in my opinion. And then she had some kind of issue or bug where she was still able to heal people even if she was controlled. That's a thing in this game. If there is some kind of control effect where the hero can't take their turn, then their passives and skills like that don't activate. All right, Marvel. I think this is the one that a lot of people were really upset about, considering he was an SR hero. Now, he was still a LD SR, so he's not as easy to get as the others. But this guy, you could use him in every single dungeon, every single shell, dungeon, as well as the modules. You use him in PvP. I understand when people have the option to have a character like that, but at the same time, when he takes no brain power to use, right? it's just like, oh, just play Marvel. Put in Marvel and then slot people around them. That's not healthy for game design. It's not healthy for, team compositions and things like that if you can just slot in one character all the time. So I'm glad that they made these changes. That might be a hot take for the community, but anyway, that's how I feel. So on his S1, the stealing of the turn meter, which was basically 100%, barring the 10% effect res that the game has here that's static, right? The highest percentage chance you have is 90%. But bumping that down to 80, and then the steel turn meter going from 25 to 15, similar to Dinah's, this is fine. He's still good. He's still good with that skill. The thing that they did here, which I think is a bigger change, is not the turn meter reduction on the S3 from 50 to 40, but the skill cooldown going from 4 to 5. This was a very, very easy skill to loop back around to. The 4 skill cooldown was low, considering how much steal on his turn meter on the skill 1. Now, with him getting the 15% reduction in his skill 1, I think, along with the turn meter reduction from 50 to 40, that the skill cooldown probably could have stayed at 4, and I wouldn't be surprised if later on if the devs end up going back and switching this back from 5 to 4, in all honesty. The thing is Marvel was a new character that was only available on the final beta test. So they only have one beta worth of data to evaluate this character. So I think this is a little too much of a rebalance, but we'll see. We'll see. His kit is still very strong. It's just whether or not this is the game changer or not, we'll see. So Victor was seen in a lot of compositions with him indicting, just like obliterating bosses, and they have reduced his damage dealt based on his lost HP from 15 to 9%. I do think this was needed, but still, that's what it is. And then you had some kind of like bug fixes on Dorothy. I think this is another one that got people upset. So number 41 is a rare, and the boost that this character gave to people was 35%, which was huge. It was huge. Now, I can sympathize with the free-to-play people here in regards to, it's just like, man, you can't give us one character that's usable in a rare, and I still think this character is good. It has a useful skill too, with a big heal, and a 20% turn meter boost along with attack up for 2 turns. That's still a strong skill. And again, I think people need to look at this in context where all of the turn meter abilities in this game got readjusted on this balance patch, barring like a couple characters that have like this capability, or it's like the unique thing that they do, like they boost turn meter by 100%, or they boost turn meter, like it's their thing. It's not just like another part of their kit. It's like they're a specialist. So yeah, I think this was the other one that kind of got people jazzed up, but I'm fine with all of this rebalancing. I think it's okay. I think it doesn't destroy any specific character based on what people saw in beta tests. I think some of the characters were just a little overtuned. Some were undertuned, which is why they made some adjustments. But overall, I think these are somewhat minor changes. Most of the characters are still going to be extremely usable. I think the biggest changes for me that I saw was essentially Rahu and Veronica. Like those two from the SSR standpoint, it's just like, oh, okay. Like Rahu was already good, and now it's just like he might be top tier. And then Veronica went from completely irrelevant to like, oh, okay, yeah, this character is probably extremely solid again. So yeah, anyway, guys, that's all I got. I just want to go over the rebalancing of the characters. They also did rebalance the shells and stuff, but like I said, I'll leave a link below for you guys to just go and check all this stuff out yourself and read up on it. But yeah, we're only 3 days away from launch, guys. Getting excited. Hope you're ready. All right, I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.